Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to be doing one of our little chats with Stephen Osborne. Hey, Stephen.
Hello, how's it
And
going?
we're going to be talking about Stephen's story in Horrifying Holidays, or which let's see what the heck. Oh, there we go. I am terrible at figuring out how this camera works. um, anyway, Stephen's got a story in here called Christmas Creeps. And why don't you kind of give the viewers a little bit of an idea about what the story's about, maybe what your inspiration was, that kind of thing?
Well, it's a story set. I've got a series, a novel series called, they're referred to as the Duncan Andrews thrillers. Um, and it's characters from that series. This is a standalone story, but it's with those characters. So it was nice to revisit those characters. And this one, the main character is Robbie Church, who was Duncan's boyfriend, and it involves him being on his own for a while. Duncan is off doing something else, and so he's put in charge of their detective agency, which they basically investigate bizarre things. And so he's on his own on a case. He takes a case involving a haunted house, basically, and deals with that. He also deals with a zombie, which is fun. You got to have a zombie.
Yeah, the zombies are better all the way around, Well,
Yeah,
except in real life. I don't think they'd be much fun in real life.
well, they had to have, there's two of them, so therefore Christmas creeps. There's more than one creep,
Right, right.
or maybe they
Now,
get more creeps.
go ahead. You want to give them some more ideas about what your novel series is like, then?
Well, the Duncan Andrews series. Duncan is a private detective working out of Indianapolis. Um, as the series starts off, Robbie is dead in the first book. He's a ghost and has been for 10 years. And Duncan's having a hard time dealing with that, actually. And his best friend, Duncan's best friend, is Gina, who is a witch. She's a healing witch, though, so it's okay. And then they have a dog, Daisy, who is also dead, but is now a zombie. So we have a zombie bulldog in the series. And Daisy's main staple diet is the brains of squirrels. She likes to chomp squirrels. And strangely enough, Daisy is probably the most popular character in the book. I get more requests for more Daisy than anything else.
That's funny. I think the whole thing's kind of I don't know. I like how um, it's almost a Smallville thing. But the way you do it, it works. For Smallville, I never thought it worked because Smallville, you had this small town, and it seemed like literally everybody in town had some kind of superpower or something by the time it was over.
Yeah,
And you've got sort of that kind of thing going on, but it works for what you've done. I didn't think it worked for Smallville for me.
yeah, I agree with that. Smallville was weird in that, yeah, it was like there weren't any normal people at the end of it. They were all had some
Exactly.
sort of power.
Exactly. So you've got enough. Like most of the main characters have some sort of oddity and supernatural oddity to them, but at least the other characters around tend to be more just normal human
Normal
beings.
people, yeah. And that's pretty much the case in all the books. All the books, it's my little team is the weird ones, and they're dealing with regular people who come against weird things, and so they know how to deal with it.
Yeah, I guess it's almost a Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of thing too.
Yeah,
At least the later stuff, because then you had Willow as a witch, and of course Angel, and so yeah,
yeah, Spike,
but yeah, Spike, yeah.
my favorite character.
Uh, I, I sort of lost interest in that show after a while. I really liked it in the beginning, but I kind of lost interest after a while. But
They had one whole season, which I absolutely hated, but that's never good for a show.
no, I think Enterprise had that season for a lot of people with their war.
Yeah.
And that was one of those shows. I know we were talking about Doctor Who before we went on, and how sometimes the Doctor's last season is their best season. Enterprise was one of those shows that the very last season had so much promise, and they really seemed to be getting it together, and then they got canceled.
Yep. I think too many people had given up before it got good.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're
I
right.
did.
So you got any other
I was
writing?
one of those people. I gave up on it.
Oh, did you? I never did. I never did. And actually, it's one of my favorite Star Trek series. I know a lot of people think
I may
otherwise.
have to revisit it.
It's what?
I may have to revisit it.
Yeah, I have the box set of the DVDs, so I I I love that show. It was quirky and there were some weird things, but I think it worked. I don't know, for me anyway. At least it felt more like the original series and if they were actually exploring. But Voyager had some of that too.
Mm-hmm.
But so what do you got any other stuff in the works writing wise?
At the moment, no. I've got some ideas for stories and things that I want to get working on, but with Christmas in the way and work so far, I haven't found the time.
Well, since we're talking about Christmas, do you have any particular Christmas holidays or Christmas traditions? I mean, that you do?
Do I have? Not really. No. I do. I do like to watch Christmas themed episodes, like Christmas Eve. It's all Christmas themed episodes of shows, um, including things like Supernatural had a Christmas themed episode, so you watch that or something like that. Frasier had some good episodes for Christmas, so that's pretty much
Yeah,
my only.
you get the Doctor Who Christmas specials.
Oh, those are every weekend is Doctor Who Christmas specials up and leading up into Christmas week.
Nice, nice. Do you have a favorite Christmas movie?
Not really, no. It used to be It's a Wonderful Life, but I think I've watched it enough that it now annoys me.
Hit the saturation
Like
point.
I can't watch it anymore. I've watched it too many times. When you say the lines before the actors do, it's time to quit.
Yeah,
So I
I, th-
haven't
I
been.
think for, I think for me, my favorites would probably be actually Christmas Vacation is a classic, um, and I think I want to go through. I want to do between now and Christmas. I want to see all three Black Christmas movies again.
That's a good holiday thing to do. Yeah, I do
Yeah,
like watching.
exactly. Yeah,
I do like watching A Christmas Carol. One some version of it at least before Christmas.
yeah. I used to go every year. I used to go see NAT would do Christmas Carol, and every year I'd go see it. I loved seeing that show.
Yeah.
So it's a good show. Um,
This year I've got the audiobook Tim Curry reading it, so I'll be
oh,
listening
nice.
to that. Yeah, see how he.
And I should mention for the viewers, there is the original text of A Christmas Carol is in this book,
Yes, it is.
so you can have a copy and read it. I had never actually read it before until I was formatting it for to put in this book. I'd seen the movies, but I'd never read the story before.
I've
And
probably read it about 7 times.
I was taken by Dickens' writing. The man really was an amazing writer. I mean, just the way he puts things,
Yeah,
he was. I really, really like his writing style, and I hadn't realized that.
yeah,
But
he's a good writer. I've read several of his books. In fact, I
yeah,
just recently read A Tale of Two Cities, which really surprised me how much I liked it. I don't know why it
Really?
surprised me, but I really liked that book.
Yeah, I've never tried to read that one. That's one of his more extensive books, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a feeling. I just always had the feeling I'd probably lose interest in the middle of it, but
I thought I would, but I didn't. My main knowledge of A Tale of Two Cities prior to reading it was from The Wrath of Khan.
yes, exactly.
I knew the first line because they read it in the movie. It
Yeah, it was the best of times. It was the
was the
worst of.
worst of times.
I think that's a
Spock.
lot of us only understanding of that thing.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, that was my prior knowledge of Tale of Two Cities.
well, I would be exactly equal with you on that one.
Oh, I think I dropped out there for a moment.
Oh, did you? I just said I would be completely equal with you on that one, and I didn't actually even realize he wrote it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't realize who had written it. So that's kind of funny. So you got anything else you would like to chat about today?
Um, Reviews. Let's chat about reviews for a moment. How
Okay.
do you like reading reviews of your own stuff?
Um, that's well, sometimes. I mean, the way I look at reviews when I see them, what I try to do, and it's hard to do sometimes, especially some people can write reviews and be talking about the work, and it doesn't seem personal the way they put it. Other people can word things in a way that it almost feels like a personal attack. Those are
Yes.
hard to take. Um, I my view on a review is you look at it and try to be as objective as possible and say, okay, is there something here that you agree with and you think it's a
Right.
valid point? And if there is, you take that to heart and you work on it for later and think, I should work on this. And sometimes it's not, and sometimes it is. You have to not take it personally and never, ever, ever, ever reply to a bad review.
Oh, never. I don't reply to any of them actually.
I don't either, really, but you definitely never reply to a bad one. That's
Oh
the
no,
worst thing
there's
to
no
do.
point in that.
No.
That can
And the
lead to
one thing I will say is sometimes reviewers are hit on things that are legitimate. Other times it's like, what in the world was this person thinking? Like on Strange Sound of Cthulhu, this guy said that he wished I had asked the musicians about what prompted them to do the Lovecraftian music and all this. And I clearly pointed out in there that I did ask that question of anybody I got hold of, but I couldn't get hold of everyone. I did ask all these questions, and the answers are in there. And he also said, well, and there are a lot of bands that got missed, and I specifically addressed that several places in the book. I said, look, this is not exhaustive. There are a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there I'm sure I missed. So it's like, did you actually even read the book? I don't understand. So
I,
how do you take the reviews?
I've had a couple where it's obvious that they didn't finish the book because they actually have said things. I was like, nope, that didn't happen to the book. You didn't read it, or didn't read all of it at least. My favorite. For some reason, you always remember the bad ones more than you can have 20 great reviews and you get one stinker and you're like, that's the one that stays in your mind. I had this one, it's the worst review ever, probably of any book ever. Um, it started off with, okay, I admit it. I read this piece of
oh,
and went downhill from there.
oh my.
But as you read it, it was like they were trying to find things to complain about that really didn't even make any sense to complain about. Like the book was set in Indianapolis. It's not one of the Duncan Andrews books, but it was also set in Indianapolis. And they they said, well, these buildings aren't really in Indianapolis. These addresses don't exist. I was like, No, it's fiction.
Yeah.
I made them up.
Yeah, I wonder if they had an axe to grind and were just trying to figure out
Yeah.
how best to put it in as much as they could.
A
That's
friend of
weird.
mine, a friend of mine read that review, and he was so. I mean, he was like getting to the phone so that he could type in a reply to her. And I was like, no, 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 you don't do that. You don't do that.
Never do that.
Just leave it
Nothing good
alone.
can come from that.
And he's like, but I'm not you. I can say it. I was like, no, don't go there. Don't go there.
No, you do not want to get into a flame war like that.
No.
Because
I've
that is
seen
just not going to turn out well.
I've seen other people do it, and it never ends well.
No, and it's funny because I do music reviews, and it's like it's odd because I've actually had people do it with me. I mean, they'll come back and argue with me over a review, and the funny thing is when that happens, usually it's not even. I don't do full negative reviews. The thing I do at Music Street Journal is my attitude is if you don't like something more than dislike it, don't review it. So everything there is a positive review. There can be negatives in it, but it's a positive review. And sometimes the people that will argue are the ones where, it's probably a 90% positive review, 10% negative, and they're coming at me to fight about the 10% that I had a problem with and disagree with me. It's like, really? What? I don't get it.
Yeah. So no, never engage. Doesn't work.
No, no, no. And yeah, look, taking it from that point of view too. On the other hand, I've literally had a few people who have written to me and said, okay, I want some more clarification on what the problems you had with the album were. And I'll talk with them about it and go over, and I always make clear, what? It's one review, one person's opinion. If you see the same thing coming up a lot, there are not a lot of reviews, then it's something you really should think about. But for the moment, just take it as, one person's opinion. But I've actually had a few people who've come back to me and asked for advice. And then when the next album comes out, they'll send it to me and say, hey, how is this? Is this improved? And usually it is. They've taken some of what I've given them for advice and actually made a better work with it. I think that's how if you're going to engage with a reviewer, and you shouldn't, that's the way you do it. And actually take something constructive out of it.
Yeah.
That's the only way it's a good idea. But
Now, I've had some readers, message me on Facebook. If they do that, I think then you should reply because that's being polite, But
right,
they're just readers. I've had some the Duncan Andrews books have been translated into French, and I've had some people message me on Facebook in French about the books, and you use the translate. It doesn't really work. You get the idea, but it's like if you're asking me a specific question, I have no idea.
yeah,
Just getting this general impression that you liked it and you want another book, but
Yeah, I've had people from all over the world contact me about Strange Sound of Cthulhu over the years, and that one was actually released in a German language edition at one point. So but I get gotten messages from all over the world about it. It's kind of interesting to get that kind of a response. I think
it is.
because you don't really anticipate it. You put it out in the world and you have no idea who's buying it and where. I mean, when I sell through Lulu, I can tell what country something was bought in, but you have no idea who it is, And all of a sudden, there's someone who's read your work and they're getting in touch with you. I think that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I have several friends and more fans in England that have read the Duncan Andrews books, and it's always weird to think, oh yeah, somebody over there has read it. That's weird.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of cool. It's also just kind of bizarre in a way. I don't know. it's a weird writing like that, and getting your stuff out there is just kind of, it's almost surreal in a way because it's yours, but
because
in a way,
it's
once it's
yours,
out
but
there,
then
you feel
it goes out into the world, and it's other people's. Then it's not yours any longer. You
right.
know,
And the thing about writing is, one of the things I like about writing and reading is when you see a movie, it's all sort of spelled out for you. Everything's visual. You can see in everything that's going on. In a book, your mind has to fill in all that stuff, and so a book is going to be completely different in everybody's mind. It's not going to be the same work in any two people's minds. So it almost does really become a part of the reader in a way.
hmm yeah, I had one person on Facebook sent me a picture of what she thought my characters looked like. Mostly it was different actors or whatever, but some were like she'd have pictures of historical figures, and I was like, that was interesting. I hadn't pictured them the same way at all, so it was like, oh, okay.
Well, and here's something now. I know a lot of writers are very protective, I guess. Perhaps I don't know. They're very strict with their work, and they don't want to see someone else interpret it. But at one point, one of my friends was working on a screenplay for one of my short stories, which he quit doing movies, so it's never going to get done. But it was interesting because he would send me pages of the script, and personally, I thought it was really cool to see someone else's interpretation of the characters and the scenes that I created. To see them through someone else's eyes, I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, that would be neat. I've
Yeah,
never read anything else anyone's trying to write with my characters. I'm not come across that anyway. Who knows?
yeah. And maybe a bunch of us should start getting together and doing the Lovecraft Circle kind of thing of passing some characters around and stuff, and making some used in other things and mentions of other things. Not a bad idea. I actually was trying to do that with my vampire world for a while, because I've got a very, very specific rules and origin and everything for my vampires, which are very different than standard vampires. And I thought it would be neat to have some other people do stories in that same vampire universe, but nobody's picking me up on it yet.
One of the troubles with creating a universe and rules for your thing is making sure you don't accidentally break them.
Oh, I know. Yeah, and sometimes you have to go back and look and see, okay, well, what did I say about this?
Yeah, I've had to do that too. It's like, did I ever say that this couldn't happen? No, I didn't. Okay, good. He can die that way then.
Yeah, like I'm actually also I've sort of taken a little break from it, but I'm working on the sequel to Wizard Song, and I have to keep going back when I'm working on it and look at the first one and make sure everything I'm doing is consistent with what was in there. And I didn't, especially because um, I actually changed, well, not changed, I added to something that is alluded to and talked just a little bit about in the first one. And I was like, okay, did I have anything in there that specifically says this couldn't have happened? So I had to look and make sure it didn't. And, it's like, I think a lot of times with TV shows that doesn't happen because you've got different writers coming in and they're on a really short time frame and things get missed. Also, script changes happen last minute. But and I think probably some writers are that way too. Like I think if I remember, it's been a while since I've read the Harry Potter stuff, but I think I found some things in there where it was like, okay, once she did this in this book, now this suddenly doesn't make sense anymore in the old earlier
Yeah.
book. Obviously she didn't take that into consideration. So I think you've got to be very careful about that because if you screw up, somebody's going to probably notice.
Although sometimes the screw ups can be fun. Conan Doyle in the Sherlock Holmes stories, Watson's war wound travels over to his body. In one story, it's his shoulder. And in most of them, it's his leg. He was shot in the leg, and that was his war wound. But every now and then his shoulder crops up, and it's like, where the hell was it? I remember, I think it was William S. Baring-Gould who came up with the solution that Watson had been bending over tying his shoes, and the bullet went through both his leg and his shoulder, and that's why so it was both.
That's funny. Or maybe he got shrapnel in the shoulder from hitting the leg. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. An interesting little game we play with writing stuff, I think.
My favorite literary mistake is in Robinson Crusoe. Defoe has Crusoe taking off all his clothes, and he swims out to the boat, the wreck of the boat, to get some supplies. Once he's on the boat, he fills his pockets with things and then swims back.
Okay. Does he have flesh pockets or?
Maybe there was a scene where he donned clothes that got cut or something, but yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm always afraid when I do, especially, short works is easier. But when you get into novel length, it's like, okay, did I miss something? Is there a hole there somewhere that I just didn't see? Or is there something because there's a lot to go back and look at and keep in the mind, and it gets difficult. I understand why people make mistakes like that when they're writing.
Well, I do too.
100% understand it.
And I'm sure I've made a few. No one's pointed out any to me, but I'm sure there's been little niggly things that I've messed up on. But I didn't catch them. Somebody else didn't catch them, so they don't exist until I find out, otherwise.
Exactly. It's kind of like typos. Literally, I don't care how many times you go over it. I don't care how many proofreaders you have. Something's going to get by.
Yeah.
If you look at big publications, the big publishing houses, look at first editions of their books, and you'll almost always find at least one typo in a book. Almost, if you're really looking for it.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't kill yourself about worrying about that because it happens. It's going to happen. We're human beings. So
no matter how the more times you look over it too, your eye picks out, you don't see it because your eye just goes right over it. So yeah, typos are going to creep in there.
Absolutely. And it's like, okay, as long as there aren't too many of them, you're going to be all right. But if you get one every page or something, you probably need to have somebody else looking up for it.
One thing that I created in the Duncan Andrews books, in the very first book, in my world, ghosts can only go to places that they went to in life. They can't go anywhere, and that tripped me up later because I was like, okay, I need to have this character go here and the ghost, but no, how can I make sure that it's been obvious that the ghost has been there when he was alive? It was like, have to add a scene.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. And then like with Wizard Song, I've got I did the Star Trek thing in that I try to make the tech seem like it's viable, but you don't give too much information away because I'm not a tech guy,
Yeah,
it's like I gotta make sure the tech remains consistent too, which is hard when you're making stuff like that up. But I don't know. It's interesting. I've just been writing some more vampire stories in my vampire universe. Been having some fun with that. I had to redo some of one. I did one that's the origin of the very first vampire, and it's in ancient Sparta. Well, I didn't know as much about Sparta as I thought I did, and I wrote some things in there that were very inconsistent with Spartan culture. So I had to go back in and change them because it didn't make sense.
Yep, you got to do your research.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm gonna write the story and then I'll do the research afterwards. It was funny when I was working on that one, I had literally where names would go, it would be like placeholder for the name because I hadn't looked up what the names were yet.
I've done that before. I've you know put like A and then dash 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 so that this is to be filled in later after you've looked it up.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you're writing and you're in the zone, you've got to keep on going, and it's like, yeah, I'll look this up later. I can't
Yeah,
I
I need
can't.
these details, but not right this second.
Yeah,
But
can't.
unfortunately, then, like I say, when you find out that some of the details contradict some of what you've written, it's like, oh, okay, well, got to go back in and rewrite that then.
Yeah,
And the funny thing is, I'm doing several of these historical ones now, so I'm getting into more of that. I've got another one I'm doing which takes place around Vlad the Impaler, so I got to make sure it's consistent with that time period. And yeah, those are fun.
yes, gives you excuse to read more about Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, exactly. And who wouldn't want to, really? It's kind of Vlad's kind of an interesting one because there are so few actual facts out there. There are some, but there are so few, and there's so many legends and conflicting stories, and
There are
a
many
lot of it
conflicting
was
stories, and
a
of
lot of
course,
it was his enemies made up stories about him, and
right, and history is written by the victors, so
oh, exactly.
you always have to take that into consideration. It was like, what was he really like, and what did people see him as? It's two totally different things, probably.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean that's true of anybody, really. I read something once that said something like every single person who knows you as a different person that exists in their mind of
Right.
who you are, and that's different from who you think you are. And so it's like no two people have the same opinion of who someone is.
Yep.
So it's kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. But so anything else you wanted to chat about?
I can't think of anything offhand.
I can't either offhand. Except I guess we should tell everybody to have a nice Christmas.
Oh, yes.
And be sure to get Horrifying Holidays. There we go. And you can get
Has
that at
Christmas creeps in it.
yes, it does. It has a lot of great stories in it. I actually, I hate to pick favorites of my books, of the books I publish, but I actually like this one. This one just seems really special to me for some reason. I don't know why, but it just really does. I'm very happy with my three stories in here, and I think everybody else's stories are awesome. Yours is a lot of fun. It's creepy, but it's also a lot of fun. Um, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. So
That's
you can go ahead.
I was going to say that's one of the things in especially the Duncan Andrews stories that I like is that they're fun. There's humorous bits to them, but there's also the spooky, scary bits, and finding the right juxtaposition of that it can be fun when you're writing
Right.
it.
And
You get
yeah,
the
and sometimes
scares in, but you
that
get the
balance is
laughs.
really important. Because that balance is kind of like you can't have a real loud section of music unless you have soft music preceding it because it won't seem as loud, and you can't have this really spooky stuff. If it's really spooky the whole way through, that's going to get old really fast
Yeah,
because it's not going to maintain. So you need that humor and that little lighthearted side to kind of balance it out and make it come as more of a shock and more of a more impactful.
right. I agree.
And I think you've done a great job of grabbing that balance. I really do. You did a great job of it.
Thank you.
So, like I say, if anybody wants the book, you can get it at lulu.com/spotlight/strange sound. Lulu's saying 3 weeks, I think, till from order to receiving it. So you just barely have time to get a copy by Christmas, I think. No, actually, you don't. Now that I think about it, today's the 4th, isn't it? 21 days and would be Christmas Day. So probably not, unless you go with expedited shipping. But you can still get it for yourself to read afterwards.
Yeah.
And also, you can check it out at GaryHillAuthor.com and look for the Tales of Wonder and Dread page. And well, that's it for us for today. But Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Spooky Ventures is the home for spooky content and spooky merchandise on the web. Check it out today at spookyventures.com. And remember, always keep it spooky.